Thank you so much. I won't be going over time today because it does not take that long to say that men are not women. So some of you may know me as wine girl number 2 from the gala dinner last night. But otherwise, I am the giggle in the giggle versus tickle legal fight that has been going on in Australia for the past few years. Also, sorry about my voice. I've lost my voice. Tickle v Giggle, as it started, and now Giggle v Tickle, was the first sex versus gender identity discrimination case in the world. And Australia had a real opportunity last year to lead the way with sanity and rationality and reality, and went in the complete opposite direction, unfortunately. So basically, how I got dragged into all of this is I started a social networking platform exclusively for women called Giggle. It was where women could connect to find roommates, freelance work. We had a lesbian dating component, pregnancy, anything specifically female. Also sort of a Twitter, Reddit-style forum where women could speak without any male interruption or have conversations where they might not want men to be involved. It was a response in direct to... Thank you. It was in response to the misogyny and sexism that women do face online. It was actually not in response to the nonsense that is gender ideology. In fact, I didn't know about it before we'd even officially launched. We were on the App Store and Google Play doing beta testing, and I woke up one morning to thousands upon thousands of men on the app and leaving 1-star reviews calling us transphobic and TERFs, and I'd never actually heard that word before. One of the things they also said was I had to go and educate myself, which is probably the only fair comment they ever made. So I did. I went and Googled what a TERF was, and I found, especially in the UK, these women who were speaking out about the fact that not only were men claiming to be women, but governments and institutions were taking them seriously. I still didn't know at the time what had actually happened in Australia, but I soon found out. So basically, I made a decision as the CEO of the company to tread water. I honestly thought the claim was so preposterous that it would blow over. I remember saying to my mum, this will be all over in about 4 months. No one will take these people seriously. They do. Basically, in the beginning of 2022, I received an Australian Human Rights Commission complaint from a man who claims to be a woman, citing gender identity discrimination because I had removed him from the platform, a platform he'd actually never used, but had onboarded and been kicked off. To be able to settle the complaint in the Australian Human Rights Commission, I was expected to allow him onto the platform exclusively for women, allow all men who claim to be women onto the platform, attend sex and gender education, which could only be re-education, pay him $20,000, apologize to him, and moderate, I think this is the most sinister, moderate all of the content on the app so that no man who claims to be a woman would be offended by it. Yeah.
Mind
it does turn
and
it into
soul
a man's app. In fact, I feel like when I set out to do something for women, exclusively for women, I've spent the last 5 years exclusively talking about men. I felt very much that from the first day that I got this complaint that the Australian Human Rights Commission / the Sex Discrimination Commission was never at all considering the fact that I also have human rights, and by extension that every other Australian citizen has human rights. I found that they were siding exclusively with men who claim to be women, not even everyone who has a gender identity. It was exclusively men who claim to be women. When I got the Australian Human Rights Commission complaint, I was about 14 weeks pregnant, and they were saying things in their submissions such as sex assigned at birth, but I'd found out at 20 weeks that I was having a girl. So my lived experience was the complete opposite of the ideological nonsense that they were trying to push through. And I had to make a decision of what I was going to do. My barrister, Brady Nolan, who had come on board, was very, very good in telling me exactly where this would go if I didn't settle, that it would go to federal court and all the way through to the High Court, and that it had never been challenged. It wasn't that this law was working well for the 10 years that it had existed, and I'll get into that in a second. It was that people were being intimidated by the Sex Discrimination Commission with these complaints where they'd have to settle for $20,000 or $10,000. And I thought long and hard about it. I remember sitting on my balcony and thinking, aside from my rights and women's rights and the concept of reality and truth, I was about to have a daughter, and I was like, if I'm going to eventually have to teach her to stand up for herself, and even if it feels impossible or if it's really, really hard, and if I back down at the first moment that it has been really difficult in my life, then how on earth would I ever teach her to stand up for herself? So I decided to decline conciliation and not settle in the Australian Human Rights Commission, and so it did escalate to the federal court. Now, what essentially the problem is here is that in 2013, Australia's first female Prime Minister, who has dined out on that fact for the better part of a decade, allowed amendments to the Sex Discrimination Act, which took out the definitions of both man and woman and put in the definition of gender identity. Yes. Which, I mean, the problem is there wouldn't be so much of a problem with that because if it wasn't for the Sex Discrimination Commission itself being so captured that their interpretation of the law, which law is always open for interpretation, is so ideological that they've completely forgotten that the Sex Discrimination Act should favour sex first and foremost. So the Sex Discrimination Commissioner intervened in the court case as amicus curiae, which they have a statutory right to be able to do. They intervened, they're supposed to, amicus curiae is a friend of the court and they're there to interpret the law and to help the judge. They intervened completely on the side of gender ideology. From the very first moment they intervened, they were saying absolutely ludicrous things like men who claim to be women should be entitled to pregnancy protections in case anybody thinks that could happen. So the first round in the federal court was long and stressful, which culminated in the decision from Justice Bromwich saying that sex is changeable, siding with men who claim to be women, that they can be women under law. Now, it is a lie. It's 100% a lie because, as we all know, sex is not changeable. Documents can be changeable, but sex is not. This is not even a correct statement in law of how the law even works. No human being on this planet has ever changed sex. One of the problems is in this country is in state law, people are allowed to change their sex marker on their birth certificate. In this state, for example, any of you could go tomorrow to the Birth, Deaths and Marriages office. It's $126, and you can change the sex marker on your birth certificate to the opposite or anything so long that it is under 100 characters and doesn't include swear words. Yes, and not only that, you can do it annually. So, of course, we appealed, and the appeal was heard this year in the full federal court in front of 3 judges, and we're currently waiting for the decision on that, which hopefully will come sometime before Christmas. It usually takes about 3 to 6 months to get a decision, and our hearing was in August. I will say I'm optimistic. I think that there has been a zeitgeist change globally that some people in Australia are not aware of or willfully blind to it. I don't think that, for example, some of them read the news of what's happening in both America and the UK, but in the US, for example, they have effectively won this issue politically, and in the UK, they've won it legally. So in Australia, because we have next to no real political pushback on this, it's going to have to be won in the courts, and that's why we're here. So all of this obviously does sound completely crazy, but it actually, if you can believe it, gets a little bit crazier. The first round in court cost $560,000 for me in legal fees. The appeal cost, when it's finally all said and done, will be $1.2 million. When we go to the High Court, it will be anywhere between $1 to $2 million in legal fees. I've been able to do this, raise the money for this through crowdfunding, through the generosity of mums and dads and concerned citizens and women and men, everyone, all around the world, but especially in Australia, with $10, $20, $50, $100 donations. We've never had any big backers. We don't, to this day, have any big backers. I know there's a lot of people who think that J.K. Rowling is paying the bills. She is not. I currently have $500,000 in legal invoices sitting on my desk that have to be paid. The other side, meanwhile, has no financial stake in this. It is all pro bono plus funded by the Grata Fund, which is a social justice legislation initiative to give money to people for legislative change in the direction that they want it to go, and we all know what that direction is.
How you can determine whether someone is a sensible, old-school leftist concerned about the working class and issues like equality and free speech, or whether they're a new-age lunatic leftist who has traded logic and facts for delusion and neo-Marxist wackery. Well, you can determine whether they're a serious person or one on the grips of an insane ideology by asking them the simplest of questions, like, what is a woman? We've seen that question stump many gutless bureaucrats and politicians, but I never thought that Australia's first female Prime Minister, the first woman in the lodge as leader of this great nation, would be incapable of answering, what is a woman? But here we are. Yesterday, Julia Gillard was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. Footage emerged of Ms Gillard floundering hopelessly as she failed to answer that simple question. Australia's first female Prime Minister seems to think what is a woman is some sort of a gotcha question.
What is a woman? And do you agree with Queensland's Attorney General Minister for Women, Sharon Fentiman, that trans women are women, and with the UK's leader of the Labor Party, Sir Keir Starmer, that some women have a penis?
Look, I'm very happy to answer your question, but I do worry that, and I should just say, I spend around half of each year in the UK. And in the UK, this has turned into a kind of got-you parlour game. So if you're listening to the radio, you literally, there'll be some person on there from London City Council who's trying to tell you why the traffic's not going to flow well that day, and the journo will be saying, and can you tell me what a woman is, to try and create these gotcha moments. And I think we've just got to move away from all of that and just come at this once again from first principles. We as a community are full of people with diverse stories and diverse life experiences. Amongst that rich diversity, which as Frances says is powerful, there are a number of people who genuinely believe that they are trapped in the wrong body and they want to be recognised as the gender that their mind and soul have for always told them that they are. And that doesn't go one way, it goes both ways. I think we've just got to say, like we'd want to show everybody else in the community love, inclusion and respect, we should do that for each of those individuals. And then there are a set of issues that need to be thought through about prison arrangements, about fairness in elite sport, those sorts of things that we're up to thinking about and working through if we try and do it inclusively. Most people in their lives won't end up playing elite sport. Most people in their lives won't end up in prison. Most people in their lives will encounter at some point someone who is a transsexual person, and I think what really counts is the openness and the spirit of inclusion.
So to hell with you women concerned about your sex-based rights being eroded, to hell with those of you who are seeing the very idea of a womanhood under attack and are concerned about that. Where even words like mother and breastfeeding are considered non-inclusive, where the word woman has been replaced with ugly, dehumanising terms like bleeders, menstruators and birthing bodies. Yeah, to hell with all that. Let's just focus on what the trans lobby demands and obediently follow those demands. If a dude with a beard tells you he is a woman, then he is.
Transsexual women believe that part of that inclusion is referring to them the way they want to be referred to, using the pronouns that they want to have used about them. I would seek to do that in that circumstance. And I think if we can do all of that, we can kind of take the temperature out of this.
So there you have it, around 4 minutes of idiotic waffle that shows where Australia's first female Prime Minister stands on this most crucial issue. She does not stand with J.K. Rowling, Germaine Greer, Riley Gaines. She stands firmly with the trans activists that have hijacked the left and modern feminism. Now, many of the women who had praised Gillard's famous misogyny speech turned on the former PM, and some made helpful suggestions on what she can discuss in her next podcast. I would love to see an episode on the Atheist Guide to Gendered Soul. That's one suggestion. I would like to see an episode on whether lesbian women are allowed to hold public events just for lesbian women. Well, not in Victoria, they're not.
Tuned in at 4 o'clock on Friday, could not believe my ears. But the Australian Federal Court has upheld a landmark decision that found a woman-only social media app and its founder unlawfully discriminated against Roxy Tickle, a man in a dress, after he was denied access to the platform. In their judgment, Justices Melissa Perry, Wendy Abraham and Geoffrey Kennett affirmed in August 2024 finding that Tickle was discriminated against on the basis of his gender identity, and also sided with Tickle's cross-appeal, claiming he experienced 2 instances of direct discrimination by the Giggle for Girls app and its founder, Sal Grover. The app and Sal had challenged Justice Robert Bromwich's milestone decision, which found they had indirectly discriminated against Tickle when he was barred from the platform because Sal saw he was a man. As well as upholding Bromwich's decision, the court awarded Tickle damages of $20,000, double the amount initially awarded, and ordered Giggle and Sal to pay his costs of up to $100,000. And Sal Grover joins me now. Sal, how lovely to see you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's lovely to see you too.
Now, my love, how are you feeling today after the weekend has washed over you?
Well, I think yesterday the answer to that would have been hungover, but I'm feeling pressure today. Actually, just while I was waiting to come talk to you, I was actually sitting out on my balcony, which was where I sat almost to the day 4 years ago when this first started, like in the Australian Human Rights Commission. I'd had the complaint brought against me. The Australian Human Rights Commission was completely against me. It was very, very clear. And, I was refusing to basically heed to their demands, which was to let him on the app, let all men who claim to be women on the app go to sex and gender education, pay $20,000. So he's got that. But publicly apologize and moderate all content so that men who claim to be women weren't offended by anything that actual women were saying. That was what I was up against then. And I was at that point, I was hugely pregnant. I was less than 2 months away from having a daughter. And I sat there thinking, if I just give in to this, how on earth am I ever going to teach her to stand up for herself, even if it seems impossible, even if it just seems like so hard? But, these are the times when it becomes more important too. So I felt just beyond the obvious issue of women's rights and freedom of speech and all citizens' rights and ideology versus reality and freedom of speech, all of these things on a really personal level for me, it was that I wanted to have an example to my daughter that you stand up for yourself. Yeah. And so I was just sitting up there before and I was like, if you knew now, you knew then what you know now. And the answer, to be honest, is yes. I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret standing up for women. I'll do it every single day of the week. So I've always thought, because the premise of this case is so ridiculous, and the premise of gender ideology in general is so ridiculous, I always knew that I was never going to be the one that came out of this looking like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I feel quite confident in that. Yeah.
So it was reported on that you were very emotional when you were listening to the justices, and when I was listening here, as soon as I heard the pronouns and referred to Jason as her, she, I kind of knew where it was going. Do you think when you picked up on that, obviously very early, and I mean, for you to be breaking down, was that just a culmination of how much you've gone through and how much this day meant?
It's so funny. I mean, I'm almost 42 years old, and the first thing I did when the decision was being said, I was like, I just want my dad, who was at the back of the courtroom. I was like, I want a hug from my dad. So I was just like, please, just shut up. Just I get it. Okay, you think he's a woman, whatever. Just let me go and see my dad. Who incidentally was wearing a V-neck T-shirt, and one of their arguments has been because he was wearing a V-neck T-shirt. Yeah, so lots of conversation to have with Dad about that. But I knew because in their cross appeal, the argument that had been that it was direct discrimination because he had shoulder length hair and was wearing a V-neck T-shirt, like that is, if you don't accept that is a woman, and that is direct discrimination. And I honestly thought, I know how crazy this ideology is, I know how captured everything is, but I was like, this is too stupid to work, surely. So when the Justice Perry was reading out, like she sort of did the summary and then was just suddenly just said the cross appeal is successful, I just had this moment of like, you're kidding. Like, I knew that meant everything else on my side had failed, because I was like, I just instantly, the first thing that came into my head was a V-neck T-shirt has more rights in this country than I do.
Oh, Sal, my gosh.
That was how the law ended, and that makes the law coherent. It's like, this is nonsense. Everyone knows this is nonsense, and they've clowned themselves in saying this, I think.
What blew me down when the court determined, Sal, because the previous decision in 2024 claimed Tickle was indirectly discriminated against, but they doubled down, saying he was directly discriminated against. And doesn't that decision strengthen men like Tickle, Jason, who defends their rights more to be in female-only spaces?
One of I think the most chilling things that I saw on Friday was it's a clip I saw from outside the federal court. A representative of Equality Australia, which is one of the big LGBTQI plus organizations here. A little history on it. It actually was created to fight for same-sex marriage. They had to pivot after they won that. So now they're in court saying that sex is a spectrum and against lesbians. But a representative of Equality Australia was so gleeful about the direct discrimination decision and said this will make it easier for trans people to make claims and win.
An Australian court decided something that should make everyone in the world stop and pay attention. A woman built an app. The entire concept was this. It was just for women to use to chat, to talk, to organise with other women. That's it. That's all this was. And a court just told all women that is illegal. Not only did they say it was illegal, but they just upgraded the finding. This judge came to the decision that only having women on the app was not indirect discrimination, but direct discrimination. How is that the world we live in? The damages were doubled in this finding. And all of this was ordered to be paid by a woman who just wanted to build an app for women. Let me give you some background. This lady is Sal Grover. She started an app called Giggle for Girls. Think of it as a social networking site just for women. And it actually uses facial recognition to make sure that you are female. Now, the facial recognition thing, maybe that is a bit of a strange one, because not all women who have female parts look exactly like each other. There's a lot of, I don't want to say be rude, but a lot of lesbians look like me. Hello, ladies. Peace be with you. But the intention's so clear, and by 2021, over 88 countries were using this app and 20,000 women. Women wanted it, women wanted to use it, and it could have grown into something massive. But then Sal Grover and the people behind the app decided to remove one lady. Roxanne Tickle, pictured here. Now, old Roxy Tickle is a biological man, meaning that she was born with a cock and balls, allegedly, I would imagine. Rox Dog, she identifies as a woman, meaning that she has chosen to live her life as a woman. And after looking at her profile, it was decided that she was not, in fact, able to be a part of that community. They made a decision to enforce the policy of women only. Now, remember this. And I used this example during the week when it happened. A lot of women I see on social media are looking for places to live, rent, stay, and you often see a lot of weird dudes in the comment section of these posts, saying, hey, come and stay with me. Why don't you move in? You can do it for free if I can sniff your socks. And it probably just doesn't feel overly safe for these women. And that's why something like Giggle for Girls or Giggle for Women, whatever it's called, is a fantastic idea. An area where women can be women and talk to women about, women things, vaginas and bacterial overgrowths and all that shit. After Roxanne was removed, she filed with the Australian Human Rights Commission in 2002 and also somehow got a $50,000 legal fund tied to allegedly, the University of New South Wales to pursue it. And I've had my own run-ins with the Human Rights Commission over a joke that I told back in 2023, and I hope to see them again after my new tour, which goes on sale next week. Hello, everybody at the Human Rights Commission. See you soon. By 2024, in August, the federal court found Sal Grover and Giggle had discriminated against Roxanne Tickle under the Sex-Discrimination Act. Sal then appealed, and last Thursday it was decided by the federal court that she has lost that appeal. So here's what the court actually said. The full federal court found 2 instances of direct discrimination and doubled the damages up to $20,000 and added legal fees on top of that. Now, Sal spent millions of dollars on legal fees already. So this is a massive just kick in the guts for Sal. But more importantly, the court was asked to decide something for all of us. Under federal law, what is sex? What is your sex? What does biological sex mean? Is it fixed? Is it binary? Does it matter? Does it even exist? You know the whole concept that we've been living with our entire lives? The court has said, and now it is Australian law, there's legal precedent, that the biological concept of your sex, it can change, it can interweave. Wow, that is a seismic change in Australian law. That means that you can pick and choose whatever you want. I can identify as whatever I want to be and go and join a female gym, go and do whatever I want. And if I get discriminated against, if I wanted to go to the big fucking burly women's gym with the ladies with the fucking, the big asses and they're wearing the tight pants, and I want to go there, and even though it's women only, I could just say, listen, I'm going to sue you, okay, because I identify as a woman. And they would say, well, we have to let old Butterfield with his big bald head and his beard in here to perv on all the women's fat asses. That is the country that we live in right now. That is Australia. Okay, can we all wrap our fucking heads around that? The Sex Discrimination Act, it was designed to protect women. In what world is this protecting women? Take the example that everybody uses, the women's toilets, the bathrooms, where women should be able to go and have a shit if they want to, right? Well, not anymore, because old fucking me's going to be in there. I'm going to be in there. That's what's going to happen. I'm coming for you, ladies. I'm going to sit in there and have a shit because I identify as a woman, because your bathroom's probably a little bit cleaner than the men's. Now, I'll be honest here and speak truthfully, and what I see is the truth here. Most transgender people are just trying to live their lives, right? And if they want to use the female bathrooms and they're dressed up as a woman and they've already got fake boobs and stuff, it's probably a bit weird to go into the men's. But that is for them to deal with. Don't make it an issue of all women, because no men feel unsafe when someone who was born female walk into the men's because they're living their life as a man. No one fucking feels unsafe there, because men are bigger than women. Okay, that's what this all comes down to. The physical traits of a male being bigger. When he, who is now a she, walks into the female bathroom, there is a direct threat. Not because all trans people are violent, but some people who live their lives as a transgender person, maybe just going off the stats and the figures of the public out there. Okay, some people in the public are dangerous people. Therefore, some people in the trans community are also dangerous people. I'm trying to fucking say this in a way where YouTube's not going to kick me off, but you know what I'm saying. Some people are dangerous. And this means that some women are going to find themselves feeling unsafe while they're going to the bathroom, or they're walking in somewhere that should be only women. And that's not okay. Robert Clark, who is a part of the Alliance for Defending International, put it like this: a law written to protect women has been used to punish a woman for creating a space for women. That's what this means. So how do we get to this point? And I feel so sorry for Sal. Like, this is ridiculous. She's just trying to help women and she's ended up in this fucking mess. Sal's a mother. She's just living her life, and this goes on for no fucking reason. Like Roxanne, like, I'm happy for you to live your life as a woman, but you were born male, allegedly, apparently. So, you don't get, unfortunately for you, like, it sucks. Like, it's not, but the world's not perfect, mate. You don't get to live your life exactly how every other woman does because you are a trans woman. And you should be like, we should look after you and make sure you're safe and all that shit. But you can't, like, Roxanne goes and plays fucking hockey against women. Like, that's a half a contact sport, isn't it? Like, is that fair? Should we ask those questions? And what does this mean for other women who are playing sport in Australia after this decision? Does this mean that if I identify as a woman in 10 months, 12 months, and I get on estrogen and all that type of stuff, I could go and play for Australia in rugby league or rugby union? Does that what this means? Otherwise, it would be discrimination, right? And this was all caused back in the day under Julia Gillard, a female prime minister here in the country in 2013, because she added an amendment to the Sex Discrimination Act. They added gender identity as a protected characteristic under the Act. Now, these protected characteristics or protected feelings that some people have, they are in laws all over the world. So this shit, because it's been proven here, can now happen in a lot of other places. So it's coming for all ears. At the time, no one really gave a rat's. It didn't go to a referendum. The Australian people didn't have a say on it. It was just in there, and it wasn't until 13 years later that it was actually used. And what should absolutely blow everyone's mind here and did my fucking head in is the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, Anna Cody. She was pro-tickle. She was ticklish. What the fuck? This is the same commissioner when asked to define the word sex and couldn't give a clear answer.
Stated that you didn't understand the term biological man. You've now had some time to look at that. Do you now have a definition for biological man? What's your understanding of it?
Senator, I'm not a medical expert.
Do you accept that there's a clear criteria that exists to distinguish between male and female?
The Sex Discrimination Act does not define man or woman. It has an inclusive definition of women that includes all women, so that is First Nations women, women from culturally and racially marginalised backgrounds, trans women, lesbians, women with disability.
So what does this mean for everybody else? What precedent does this set? And I know some people are like going, who cares? It's just a social media fucking thing. No, it's much bigger than that. This is going to affect women all over Australia, okay? Probably the world, because they're going to use this. The Australian Human Rights Commission, people who, they are paid by the taxpayer to, this is another fucking thing. The taxpayer's paying for this case to be run, I'd like to just say. So you and I, we're paying for it. But this means that for the rest of time, until laws are repealed or changed, or a judgment is handed down that is somewhat different, that women in this country will have to compete, whether it's in sport or be around biological men in spaces that should be theirs. That's what this means. Women's shelters, domestic violence shelters, places where horrible things have happened to women and they go for shelter, places where they go to escape, often male perpetrators, will now be spaces where people who used to be males, and I'm happy to call them trans women, don't get me wrong, but they can now go as well. Sex is no longer a biological reality. It doesn't exist anymore in Australia. The land down under doesn't give a fuck about what you've got going on down under. It's how you feel. And this ruling has made it not only a reality in everyone's minds, but a legal reality, which is so different to just, the social reality that it has been for some time, even though I disagree with it. Meanwhile, in the UK, 6 weeks ago, the UK Supreme Court actually ruled a decision in the opposite way. The Women for Scotland case, the UK's highest court, ruled unanimously that woman in the Equality Act means biological woman. Sex means biological sex, which we all know this, by the way. We all fucking know this. We're clear, unambiguous, that is what they decided. So the UK is slowly sort of coming to their senses. Women in the UK celebrated, not because they hate trans people. This is the thing. This is not about hating trans people. This isn't even about being anti-Roxanne Tickle. It's about doing the right thing. People talk about being on the right side of history. This is on the right side of fucking history. What we're talking about here, okay? Making the obvious decision. That's the right side. But Australia just went in the opposite direction. They just went, fuck you, we're going in the opposite direction. Even the people who are supposed to be there to protect women. Fuck you, we're going in the opposite direction. So where does this go from here? Sal Grover's going to the High Court. Good fucking on her. And you can get behind Sal. Go and check out her Instagram. Go and check out her Twitter. Go and check out Sal everywhere. Support her. Pauline Hanson's backed her in Parliament as well. She's the only one talking about this. None of the other politicians give a shit. This isn't over, is the point. But right now the law says that it's over and sex doesn't fucking matter. So ladies, a quick message to you from me, who, well, now identifies as a woman. I'm going to do a shit near you in the stall next to you and you're going to fucking hate it. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucking